Hey everyone, I'm Remy, and this is more homework for Queering Desire. Today I'm working with the book that I've been reading, which is The Promise of Happiness by Sara Ahmed. I don't know if enjoy is exactly the right word, but I'm having a thrilling time reading it, to say the least. It's been very exciting. I'm interested today in the figure of the feminist Killjoy. We haven't quite gotten to talking about unhappy queers yet. I'm going to kind of leave them out of the picture. But I'm interested in the feminist Killjoy, specifically in how she might be connected to a sort of figure I'm creating of my own. It's not quite the film snob. I'm thinking of it sort of as more like the film scholar, so to speak. So this is inspired by a couple of pieces from Ahmed's second chapter on feminist killjoys. I'm thinking first on page 65, when she writes at the bottom of this first paragraph, "The feminist killjoy spoils the happiness of others. She is a spoilsport because she refuses to convene, to assemble, or to meet up over happiness." And I think this is maybe not the first quote, but one that got me the most thinking about the way that the feminist killjoy might sort of connect to spectatorship in the cinema, and the cinematic event was sort of wrapped up, perhaps for the film scholar, in similar processes of spoiling the fun. So I thought about this kind of personally, that since I've been reading film theory more heavily over the past few years, and of course as a film scholar, I guess we should also note that there are some popular feminist theory pieces that come up multiple times for many film scholars, specifically in my program, which is cultural studies focused. So Laura Mulvey's Visual Pleasure in Narrative Cinema, I think I've read in at least 3 courses, and most of my peers who are majors would agree that that's popped up multiple times. You don't, of course, see like Mulvey's revisions and reformations later. We just kind of read the more so original essay, or the way it appears in the collection, Narrative, Apparatus, and Ideology, so it's a little bit updated from the original, I suppose. But I thought about how, as a film scholar, you also sort of face processes of spoiling the fun, or I guess in specific relation to film, no longer being able to really view film simply as entertainment, or simply as stories or scripts of happiness, which, we could find sort of scripts of heteronormative happiness in the majority of US films, and this is where this idea of the film scholar, I think, also connects to not only Mulvey, but ideas like those in, say, the Bechdel test, which show us sort of the lack of predominant female and feminine characters in films, with sort of more complex character-driven stories. But I guess more specifically in relation to my experience, I've been thinking about how no longer viewing film as entertainment does sometimes mean spoiling the fun, spoiling the happiness for other folks, in the way that, the sort of figure of Debbie Downer or the feminist Killjoy points out violence and power. So I'm thinking then specifically about a second quote from Ahmed that comes on page 86, in the last full paragraph on the page. She starts out by saying that feminist consciousness can be thought of as consciousness of the violence and power that are concealed under the languages of civility and love, rather than simply consciousness of gender as a site of restriction and possibility. And I think that's key here too, and it would apply, you could almost pop in film scholar there and expand a little bit and see similar processes, that, the consciousness of studying critical film theory is, in fact, in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, consciousness of the violence and power concealed under filmic languages of civility and love, and often heteronormativity, right? Since we can see so predominant in the films we get, especially in the US, heteronormative coupling as the theme again and again, whether it's sort of interwoven with sort of a double causal plot structure, that there's something else going on, also supporting what's happening in a love story, or rather, if we look to films like, say, Die Hard, there's something else going on that in fact overrides any sort of relationship problems with love happening, and in fact solves them through that primary storyline. Romance troubles are solved through saving the world, through all of these other action events. I just wanted to start rolling around this idea of what it might mean to be a bit of a killjoy and being a film scholar as well. I know that I try hard not to point out some of the more complex things I see sometimes happening in film, or some of the more downer events I can draw in connection to just the surface level plot structure of a film. And I'm really interested in what it might mean to develop this further in relationship to happiness and unhappiness, because I think there is a certain critical unhappiness that comes with no longer viewing film as entertainment, with no longer really seeing joy in simple stories of love in the cinema, but in fact digging deeper and always looking for such problematics underneath the happy story.